this video tutorial. This is Ahmed Youssef. I will be showing you during this video how can we launch a GUI application from a container machine. As we know that containers are usually used to run what we call headless application, which are the application that doesn't have a GUI server or what we call X server. What we are going to see during this video, how can we share the X11, which is the GUI component between the host machine and the Docker. That's why we will be sharing a lot of similarities between our host machine and the Docker. Let's start by updating our package. So let's start by let's start by apt update. Okay, everything is updated, and after we do this we need to install some packages that we are going to use for this tutorial. We will be installing these packages xorg and xauth, and these two packages are installed. So this is the first step. Let's now create a Docker file which we will build to obtain our Docker image. Let's create a new directory. Let's call it Docker UI, cd Docker UI, and let's create our Docker file. Inside this Docker file, we will be starting from Ubuntu, and we need to run some commands as we are going to create this container with Firefox installed, and this container actually need to look like this machine, which is the host machine, in terms of folder structure and in terms of users and permission. Why is that? Because the Docker image will be using the same X server that I'm using on my Ubuntu machine. That's why the Docker should have the same folder structure and the same users and the groups that I am using with my machine. Otherwise we will have some conflicts and some permission issues between the Docker image and my host machine. So let's start by update. We will run this at the beginning, and then after we update our package, let's install Firefox on the Docker image, and let's use -y in order to avoid any interruption. And then let's start adding group and user, and remember that the group and user we are going to add should be similar to actually what I'm using here. So this is ID, this is the ID 1000, this is the username, and this is the group. So I have to add the same exact groups and users. So I will be starting by group add -g 1000, and this group should be called Ahmed, and after that I will be adding a user, and this user should have the same home directory which I'm using, /home/Ahmed, and it will be using this shell as I'm doing as well, and the username of course is Ahmed, and finally I will be using this as user ID, and this is the group ID which we have just created. So after doing this, we will be switching the user to Ahmed, and we will define an environment variable. It's called home. This environment variable should point to /home/Ahmed. After we are doing this, we will be running a command which is Firefox that will be launching our browser, and that's it. Let's save this file. So we have now everything is fine. Let's start to build our Docker environment. So let's call sudo docker build the current directory, and we will be giving this a tag. Let's call it Firefox or UI Docker. Let's call it UI Docker. So okay, so it's starting to update. Let's pause the video and return once everything is installed. everything is installed as it should be. So now it's time to run our container. In order to run our container, we use sudo docker run, and we should be passing a couple of options that ensure that the Docker will be able to use the X server installed on our host without any issues. So we'll be sharing this display, and we should mount this file. What is this file? This file is under the home directory. It's called X authority. This file simply should be used in order to launch the X server, the X11 application. So we need to make the Docker machine able to use our file from its expected location, which is the home directory on the Docker machine. So we'll be mounting this in this way. So when the Docker image goes to this path in order to obtain the configuration of the X11 server, it will be directly using our valid or our legitimate settings of the X authority. So we get sure that everything should go smooth. The second thing that we need to ensure is the network, and we need to ensure that the Docker image or the container is able to use our host network. So we will be using --net equal host, and then we will be typing the image name, which is UI Docker. So what we expect now, once we hit enter, we should see a new window of the Firefox coming to our screen, and this version of the Firefox is running from inside the Docker container. Let's see. Yes, that's it. So now we have an instance of the Firefox running from within the container, and we can deal with that, and we are sure that this version of Firefox is isolated from our host environment. If we close this, it will terminate the container as we are seeing here. So that's it. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Thanks.